Starship Vigilant, a Star Trek Adventures campaign.
I was just going to say we'll do a bit of a more lengthy preamble probably than we would normally, just because I'll give everyone a chance to introduce who they're playing, and we'll tell you a little bit about who you're playing, and then I'll try and summarise the situation. Which do you reckon I can get 43 episodes into 10 minutes? What do you reckon?
Well, the way you talk, Steve, no problem, mate, no problem.
Oh, thank you. I think is that a compliment? I'm not entirely sure.
No, I don't know either.
Erin, you spoke 2 words, and one of those was probably correct.
Yeah, very funny. So the okay. I'll put my little bit of dating information in. Dating? No, that sounds wrong. So this is session 43 of.
Good start, Steve. Good start.
Yeah, I'm off to a good start. That's fine. I can edit that out.
Don't give me your grind profile again.
No, not yet. Right, so episode 43, session 43 of Starship Vigilant. This is As Many as 6 Impossible Things, Part 1. Today's date is Wednesday, the 22nd of September 2021. So we're gathered around the virtual tabletop today. We have, so Mike, would you like to introduce yourself and just briefly tell Peter who you're playing? Right.
As you probably guessed, my name's Mike. I play the ship's first officer and helmsman, Kaz Mulcation. Everybody calls her Kaz.
Okay, great. Right, anything else you'd like to say?
No, not really. Not off the top of my head.
Okay, so Kevin, why don't you maybe just tell us who you're playing today?
Yeah, today I will be playing Kolish, who is the Chief Security Officer. She is she's not Starfleet. She was part of a exchange program with the well, she's a Klingon, so she came over from with the Klingons, and a member of the crew went over to the Mapool, which has gone missing. But that's another story for another time.
Great, thank you very much. Right, Kevin, would you like to tell us who you're playing today?
Today, Matthew, I will be David Osterhagen. I'm a Vulcan who likes to collect people's DNA and has a thing for photon torpedoes.
Okay, and
if you can think of a crazy idea, David's already there.
So Peter, so again, I've dumped on you the character of Giara Prux, who is a joined Trill, and she is the ship's chief engineer. So right, let me give you a little bit of background on the setting. So you are the crew of the USS Vigilant. The USS Vigilant is the second in the line of the Defiant class starship. The Vigilant has been assigned to the Shackleton Expanse based at the Narendra Starbase, which is the centre of Federation expansion in the Shackleton Expanse. So over the course of the last couple of years, in real time, but in game time, it's been probably 8 or 10 months of time. The Federation has been exploring the Shackleton Expanse and have come across some unusual phenomena, which it has turned out to have been related to an ancient race known as the Tilikal. So recently, in game time, the crew of the Vigilant, along with a couple of other Federation starships, discovered a star system called Candidate 3. And in Candidate 3, they came across a planet which was covered in ancient ruins. And these ancient ruins were the most tangible evidence of the Tilikal civilization, which had yet been discovered. And it turns out that the Tilikal had an emissary called Assessor Tredic on the planet, and through him they were essentially asking for help. It appears that they are trapped somewhere elsewhere, which is not entirely clear. And so, as a result of the machinations of the Tilikal's essence, a planet called Organ 3, which the crew had visited before, was transported across space and ended up crashing into the Candidate 3 system planet. And before this happened, so there was a massive space battle, and there was all sorts of stuff going on. And the Tilikal, or a representative of the Tilikal, had called out to through some sort of psychic means to people throughout the system, and the crew of the Vigilant had responded, or the captain had answered the call, and as a result, the Vigilant appeared to disappear. Sorry, was that you, Karen?
Oh no, that was my Pornhub update. Sorry.
Okay, fair enough. Good to know. And so, as a result, the Vigilant had disappeared, and to all intents and purposes, the Candidate 3 system had returned to some sort of normality, but everyone had assumed that the Vigilant had been destroyed. At the same time, the Romulan Star Empire, which is also we've encountered throughout the course of the missions, have increasingly had a presence in the Shackleton Expanse. And Romulans had also been racing for the planet to try and essentially obtain the technology left behind by the Tilikal. But in the events that occurred, they had been thwarted. And as I say, last session, which was episode 42, we dealt with the fact that the Vigilant had appeared in a mysterious, what appeared to be an other dimension. This other dimension is not space as is known to the crew. This dimension is filled with light and air and oxygen, and there is some force simulating gravity, which is not, as far as your sensors were able to tell last time, actually gravity, but there is some force providing, the illusion at least of gravity. And simultaneously, it had been discovered that in this realm, your matter-antimatter engines function as designed. The matter-antimatter reaction simply wasn't happening, and so as a result, the Vigilant is operating on emergency battery power, and you have a somewhat of a schedule before the ship's batteries run out. Right, so I'm going to pause it there for a second. Yes, guys, what have I missed?
Well, I was just going to say the Vigilant may not be, while it's a Defiant class, it may not be. It's been modified a bit. The idea was that it was a second prototype off the production line, and it was designed for. It was modified to test whether it could be used for special operations. The idea being that it carries a runabout.
Yeah, exactly.
It's also been equipped with. I don't know if you're familiar, but it was supposed to have some sort of warhead at the front, explosive warhead. That's been replaced with a bunch of sensors to make it more usable.
Sciencey.
Science equipped, yeah, basically, yeah. But as I say, short answer is it's been modified a bit, but those modifications have caused a few smelly issues, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, we've had, so the Vigilant is a ship as well that's had technical issues throughout its life. So I don't know, Peter, if you know anything, how much you know about the tech and so on. The Vigilant is basically, it's a small, it's like an escort ship. It's got a crew of about 42. It's about 150 odd meters in length, 4 decks. If you have a dig around on the website link I sent you, there is some cutaways and stuff on there.
I was looking at those earlier. Yeah,
it's not really important. I mean, as Mike says, the key thing is the ship is at this point in Star Trek. continuity. I had dread to use the word canon, but the point is that the Defiant class is still quite new. It's, as I say, the Vigilant in our setting is the second, and it had its fair share, or more than its fair share, probably, of technical problems. I think it's fair to say. Again, but the thing is with the Vigilant, it's a small, quite close-knit crew. I think that's fair to say. And as I say, you've so last time, as we finished, you had been trapped in this dimension. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to flip around with so hopefully you guys will see the screen has changed in Roll20 just to show you a view screen image. So you had ended up in this strange dimension, as I say. There were no stars visible, but there was light, so light without any apparent source. The area was filled with strange crystalline structures, and there are energy discharges visible. And as I say, you'd got to a point where the ship was. You were trying to understand the realm that you're in. And as we left the crew at the end of the last session, so Giara, the chief engineer, was with her team in engineering trying to find a way to overcome the issues preventing the antimatter reaction. And we will come back to that in a minute. And meanwhile, some of the rest of the crew, or rather Kalish, who's our Klingon chief engineer, chief security officer, had set up a system through the ship whereby the crew had. You basically have got manual. You've got people in in the corridors to pass messages because the communication systems are down. And as I say, if it wasn't for the fact that this realm or this dimension seemed to be providing some sort of force equivalent to gravity, there's no artificial gravity. The life support is essentially switched off, so you're operating on battery power. And as I say, there are literally crew members at every sort of junction point in the corridors relaying messages from the bridge to the critical systems. And some of you, which I think was Kalish and was it Kaz and Osterhagen, had assembled at the rear of the Vigilant has two landing ramps, basically because it is capable of planetary landing. It has two landing ramps, and so you'd actually gone out onto one of the landing ramps, and you had determined that there was an atmosphere, a breathable atmosphere in this dimension. So I think, was it you, Kaz, who took your helmet off or opened up your faceplate? I think.
Yes.
I seem to remember. And can you? So, what do you remember? What it was that we found at the end of last session? And I apologise for the lengthy preamble, but I just wanted to make sure I covered everything. So,
if you look at, we more or less saw what you see on the view screen there, but we did manage to pick up found a body floating in space.
So, yes, to be clear, what you had found as you were taking readings and kind of your tricorders were essentially pretty much useless, or certainly were providing conflicting information. But what you did spot within obviously visual range, because you're I seem to remember you used the visor on your spacesuit, right? With a kind of a zoom. You got like a zoom. You got like a zoom function built into your helmet or whatever.
Autofocus.
And you had detected an object, a small object floating nearby, and on closer examination, you had determined that this was in fact a humanoid alien that we've encountered before, called a Lormian. And I'm going to show you a picture of a Lormian, so bear with. Somebody's been busy fiddling around with the with Roll20 this week, so I can only apologise. Right, there you go. So that is a Lormian, and a Lormian is a species who were native to the planet Organ 3, which, as I mentioned in our last couple of sessions ago.
Just to think, am I the only one that's not seeing this?
No.
Can everybody else?
Just refresh. If you just refresh, hang on, let me make sure I've got it onto the right. First of all, if you're in Roll20, if you just refresh the page, that should bring it back up. Hopefully,
I can see it, Steve.
I'm half expecting to tell us that meat's back on the menu.
So the Lormians, as I say, were native to Organ 3, which is the planet that was destroyed in the Candidate 3 system. And this single individual you have seen literally floating nearby to the ship. And as you were watching him, you realised that he was alive. He seemed to be breathing, or you saw him move, so he seems to be alive. So I'll come back to you in a minute, Peter, in engineering, because we're going to go through I'm going to dump you right into the rules at the deep end here with to try and get the matter antimatter engines back up again. But meanwhile, those of you on the ramp, what would you like to do, seeing this apparently alive person floating some distance away?
We're going to leave it there.
Yeah. Can we figure
perfect. All right, okay.
Because that looks. Who wants him on board?
Can I just say that I think it's a bit cruel that it's Peter's first game, and Steve, you've given him the chief engineer on a ship that has got no power, and no visible way of getting that power back online. I just think that's a little bit cruel.
Talk about throwing him under the bus.
Yeah, well, there we are.
Although the bus is stationary, so
Don't you worry. I've got a plan. I've got a cunning plan. Actually, I would just like to say, out of interest, so I don't. Those of again, some of you may not be either interested or aware, but the Shackleton Expanse book came out on Friday, and as you know, I was in somewhat of a quandary about where to go. So I'm happy to that this what we are doing tonight is actually the next official adventure in the campaign. They've sort of modified the living campaign, but this is now kind of leading us into where we were supposed to be going, which is great news.
Good.
Which is why the name of the scenario's changed from last week.
Well, no, that was just last week. This is the new one. So, but yes, yes, you're quite right. So anyway, so as I say, I am sort of back on track, which is good news. I'm very happy that it didn't drop me in it too much. Anyway, never mind. So back on the tail lift of the Vigilant. Is there anything? What would you guys like to do? This guy's you've seen this guy floating nearby, and he is apparently alive. So are you going to do anything? Or
approximately how far away, Steve?
Well, let's say he's so he's probably a couple of 100 meters. Bearing in mind, let's say he's a couple of 100 meters away, and you could certainly see him with the naked. You can see him, but obviously from a distance he appeared to be inanimate. And then it was only because he moved.
Now we're experiencing a gravity-like effect, and yet he seems to be floating and not pulled towards anything. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct.
Can
seems to be drifting.
Can I experiment by throwing something out of the ship and seeing if it drops or floats?
Sure. What would you? Yeah. Okay. Fine. I mean, you can.
Well, Osterhagen's nearby, isn't he? I'll throw him.
Just throw him.
Yeah. Nothing. Just like a bolt or something.
Steve, I'm going to look at Kalish and say, Lieutenant, when he makes a joke about Osterhagen.
You've learned to read my eyes, Kaz.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can easily take something from the bulkhead. But as I say, this landing ramp comes down from the back of the ship, so you can. There's bound to be a toolkit or a. You just grab a wrench or something. Grab a space wrench.
Yeah.
Our working hypothesis was everything was reverse, or the opposite of. The gravity.
That was
Yeah, because the gravity's on because when the gravity
we're not rotating or generating artificial gravity that way.
Yes, so yes.
Yeah.
So given that
it's a definite down and up.
Yes, so given that this guy is out there, so he would normally be dead. So he can survive out in space because everything's in reverse. He can actually breathe out there. So if we can use that logic, how difficult would it be? So the normal process for being out in space is you drift aimlessly. So therefore, I would propose that it's possible for you to swim to him and swim back, because you in normal circumstances you could not propel yourself out in space, but because everything's almost reversed, I would suggest you could propel yourself out into space by swimming.
I'm not willing to test your hypothesis.
Oh no,
Do you want to throw the? Should we throw the wrench and maybe
Shall
see
we?
what happens?
Yeah.
Well, why don't we throw Osterhagen? He can test
Have
his
we
own
got a red
theory.
shirt? Have we got a red short floating about?
Right. So, Karen, what I'll get you to do is if you can go to your character sheet.
Indeed. Yeah.
And I think we'll make this a little task, just to demonstrate to Peter how this works. So in the character sheet, you have. If I go to, give me a second.
Are you able to access your sheet, Peter, just so you can follow along?
Yeah, I'm all good.
Lovely.
Great. So, Kalish, on your character sheet, obviously, what you do is I'm going to get you to click on fitness.
Yep.
And security for me.
Certainly.
Let's have a little look. Have you got any focuses? Right. So again, Peter. Again, I'll try and remember to try and explain things. Again, let me know if I'm not making anything clear. So with tasks, quite simply, you have attributes and discipline. So the attribute is the bigger number. So you add the two numbers together, which gives you your target number. So in the case of this, with fitness and security, that would be a 15.
Yep.
You roll 2d20, and the idea is that any dice that you roll below that target number are successes. If you roll a 1, you get 2 successes. That's like a critical success. You also have an option called focuses. So what focus on your character sheet will have a number of focuses listed, normally 5 or 6. And if the discipline, if one of the dice that you roll is equal to or less than your discipline, so in the case of this task, if Kalish rolls a 4 or less and she had any focuses that would be applicable, so for example, if you had, I don't know, athletics, for example, as a focus.
I've got wrench throwing. Is that
you got wrench throwing? Yeah, I forgot to write that in. Sorry. But if you had a focus which was sort of suitable to the task at hand, then again, any dice that rolled that discipline number or less would also yield you 2 successes. So if I will always set a number of successes needed to succeed. And then any successes that you achieve over and above those that you need to complete the task generate what's called momentum. And momentum is essentially, it's like, again, I don't know if you've played things like Savage Worlds, but it's like bennies. It's a pool of currency that you, the players, can spend to do things better. You can re-roll dice. You can create advantage. So you can situation, you can try and make something better, you can get more information, and there's various uses for momentum, and as I say, that gets generated by you as the group, and I as the GM have a pool of threat, essentially the opposite currency, which I can also spend to do the same things but on behalf of the opposition. So right, so in this case then, Kalisha, if you want to just roll, so this is going to be a difficulty 0 because you're not actually aiming at anything. You just want to throw it as far as you can. So if you just want to roll on the task for me, and let's see what you get.
Yeah, I just want to check my focuses. No.
I don't really think there's anything.
No, not really. Okay. So rolling my 2 dice.
Oh, bloody hell.
Oh, lovely. So I got 3 successes there because one of them rolled was a 1.
Yeah.
And the other one was below 15. So I got 2 successes from rolling the 1, and I got another success from the other dice being below 15.
So that means you've scored 3 successes, which means you get 3 points of momentum. So the momentum
was 0.
Yeah, and the momentum pool, you can have a maximum of 6 momentum as a group at any one time, and basically every scene that we go into, that pool will decrease by 1. So obviously it's a good idea, as we're making task rolls, generate momentum. I'll keep tally of it. Normally, if we were sitting around the table, little tokens and so on, but I just keep a track of it. So you've got 3 momentum. So, and you can bank that momentum. Case, Karen, there isn't anything particular that you would? I can't think of anything that would benefit you to spend momentum on really at this point. I'm just having a little look. Not really. Okay, so right. Well, the good news is you. So you kind of assess the weight of this wrench, and you kind of pull back and let rip with a mighty throw, as befitting a Klingon warrior. And this wrench, something interesting happens. So this wrench, first of all, you throw it. As I say, it's a really strong throw, and this thing goes shooting off. Now, first of all, it arcs up as you would expect. So when you throw something, you throw it up and away, and it sort of, you can see it as you watch it. And I presume Kaz, any of the rest of you've got your visors down with this kind of zoom feature on. You can follow this thing like your the heads up display in the suit is kind of ticking over as it tracks this object, and you see it kind of curves up and away from you, but then it gets to a certain point and then it just stops and starts floating. It seems to be about it's hard to be precise, it's probably 20-30 meters away from the ship. This is a hell of a throw, and as it clears, it gets a bit distance away from the ship, it then sort of, rather than arcing in a natural fashion that you would expect, it then just suddenly just stops and starts drifting. So it's still drifting, but
it's almost like the ship's in a bubble or something.
Yeah.
Excellent observation. Yes, indeed. So, So,
question, right?
Yep.
Leads the next question: is how far further out is this figure from?
I think it's about 100 meters, about 100, 150 meters, something like that. So he's a fair distance.
3 times the distance.
Yeah.
So, Steve, to test what Kaz has just said, because I'm thinking a similar thing, can I find like a box of screws or a box of bolts, and I just want to scatter them outside the ship and witness them fall, and then see if they all sort of reach a similar sort of level, and then change their.
Right. Well, okay. So, colleagues, you go off and gather that. I'm going to switch scenes now to Peter in engineering.
Yeah.
So, because you've already chastised me for not giving him any engines to play with, so okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the scene again. Just bear with me. The one thing I don't like about Roll20 is the kind of way that you drag stuff around on the page bar is a little bit rubbish. But anyway, I don't know. Can you see that, Peter?
I can indeed, yes.
Right. So engineering is it's a bit smaller than your, it's not your Galaxy class or anything, but it's a compact engineering space. And you are surrounded by you've got a small but dedicated and expert team of engineers with you. So your department consists of about 12 or 13 engineers. Mostly the crew are enlisted, so they are what are designated as specialists in their field. So they're not commissioned officers, but they are technicians and extremely specialised. So your deputy or serving deputy chief engineer or chief deputy engineer is a red-headed Scottish woman by the name of Alice. She's again a feisty, opinionated officer. Now you've only been on for a short time, but she has proven to be a good assist to you. Also with you at the command console, you have the a character by the name of Rollins, who's he's what we call the chief of the boat. So he's basically senior enlisted crewman aboard, and he kind of is the father figure. He's a great American kind of middle-aged guy, but he's kind of been everywhere, seen everything, done it all. And you've been trying to figure out a way to restore power, and the consensus that you've come up with is that there is obviously some sort of an effect in this region that is causing the matter-antimatter reaction to fail. And so what you are going to try and do is in Star Trek Adventures, there is this dreaded thing called a extended task, which is a way of defining a task that is more complicated. So it's not just a simple dice roll. You carry out an action and you do something. This is a thing which means that you have a series of things that you need to do to achieve your objective, because it's more complicated or dangerous or it's more difficult than a standard task. Does that make sense?
It will do during the implementation, I think. But yeah,
That's exactly. I like to hear. That's exactly what I like to hear. Good, because I believe you me. I've always. This is something. I mean, I know Kevin. You had fun and games with this as well, didn't you?
Yep.
You and I talked about this a few times. But okay, so the way it works is, so what you've done is you've gathered your core engineering team around you. Are your kind of two confidants, even though you've only the Vigilant for a short time. Like I say, they've quickly become the sort of core of your team. So you have figured out that you need to try and find some way to kind of isolate the matter antimatter chamber from this dimension to try and see if you can restart the reaction, because matter antimatter is it's a matter of physics. You know, it should happen. And so what you are going to do is you're going to go through a couple of tasks, here and see if you can, between you, manage to set up a protective field around the warp core, which will allow you to restart the engines. Restart the engines, then at the very least it means you get back life support, which is probably the most critical thing. But it will also hopefully give you back sensors, give you back possibly motive power, and also weapons. So anyway, that's the thinking. In the game generally, if you come to me and say you want to do something extended task, then normally the GM will define it, and it's defined. There are a few things to understand. So you have what's called a track. Basically, if you imagine it's a bunch of boxes, and that kind of, those boxes get ticked off as you carry out individual tasks to try and achieve the objective. And as you go through those tasks, then I tick off boxes. And when you get to the end of that track, you've then succeeded in your objective. This is also defined by, it has a base difficulty of 3, which means any task that you try and achieve, you need to get a 3. You need to basically get 3 successes for it to be successful. And as you go on, that number can be reduced. So as you get more of your way through this extended task, then it can become slightly easier to. That makes. So the way it works is with Star Trek Adventures, as I say, you've got the discipline attribute and the discipline. So if you want to have a look at your character sheet for me, on your character sheet, if I bring up find the damn thing. I just had it a moment ago, just bear with me. Okay, so on Giara's sheet, a couple of things to look at. So she has obviously got attributes. So it's as the player, it's you can basically decide how you to approach a task. So I don't necessarily tell. I mean, I will tell you what you need. Things like combat. If you're, the combat tasks are fixed, but in terms of your trying to achieve something that's in your area of expertise, then you can tell me how you'd like to approach it. So obviously, like means you're using your analytical abilities to try and do it. But obviously, as you can see, the numbers obviously you may want to go for the high value. So I'll leave it up to you. So how do you feel about approaching this one first of all?
Well, I think in terms of attributes and disciplines, then it's probably going to be reason and engineering.
Perfect. So if you want to click on reason for me, on the little where it says reason, that will highlight that button. There you go. And then you can see engineering's already high. Now the next thing, you have focuses. Now looking at your focuses, I mean, to be honest, this is right in her wheelhouse. So I would definitely say that warp drive, you've got focus warp drive, so that definitely
Yeah.
applies. So what you do is on the character sheet where it says dice roller,
Oh yeah.
if you
Focus
click,
used.
yes, if you click on where it says yes, there you go.
Okay.
And your task roll, if you click that down to 2 dice, so click on the number 2.
Yeah.
And then what I'm also going to do is I'm going to look at her bio and info. Now, all characters have talents.
I know my ship.
Yeah, so I agree. So I would suggest that for this first, I'm going to allow you to add a bonus D20 because again, you know your ship, you've studied this class, you know your engine, and so on the first roll, I'm going to let you apply that. So on your character sheet, go back to the if you go back to the task, and if you click on the number 3.
Mm-hmm.
Right, now the next thing is you can also have other characters you. So because McHugh is essentially she's the more technical of the two. So I'm going to have her assist you, but for her to be able to help you, you have to succeed at the task first.
Okay.
And then once you get at least one success, then she can also roll to assist you. Now, there's one other thing to bear in mind, and I know this sounds really waffling on about this stuff, but once you get the hang of it, it's pretty straightforward. There's also this pool of momentum that we talked about. So because you've currently got 3 points of momentum, buy extra dice if you want. There are other things to do, but in this case, you may want to think about spending momentum to buy an extra dice as well. But it's up to you. You've already got 3, so if you want, you can just go with the 3 and see how we get on.
Yeah, we'll spend a point of momentum and go for a 4th dice.
Brilliant. So tick it onto number 4. I'll take a point of momentum. The pool, so you're down to 2. And then if you want to go ahead and roll it when you're ready, then we'll see how we get on.
I'll click that button there.
Yeah. Perfect.
Oh, look at that.
Nice. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well done. So that's 4 successes. Okay, so
It's not normally this easy. I know it.
listen, yeah. What can I say? Yeah, exactly. What can I say? Okay, so as I mentioned, the base difficulty was 3. So what that means is you've first of all you've succeeded at the first hurdle, which is great. So a couple of things happen. So the first thing that's going to happen is I'm going to roll for McHugh because she's assisting you, which means she can therefore she can roll a dice to assist you. So McHugh is going to also use she's going to go with insight and engineering.
Watch her now roll a complication.
She's got a 14. Well, let's hope not. She's also got the focus of warp field dynamics, which is also going to help. Now she only gets to roll 1d20. So I'm just going to roll that on the dice roller here. She rolled a 13, so she succeeds. So that takes your total. That means you've just rolled. That's a total of 5 successes on this first task. So the good news is because you've succeeded. The first thing that happens is you're going to roll some what we call challenge dice, and these are the dice that are used to determine damage in combat. But they also have a function in this extended task business. So on your character sheet, if you see underneath where you did the task roll, you can see where it says challenge dice.
Yep, got
that. Okay, so your discipline that you rolled was engineering.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to change. See that little number there? Can you change that? That's to the right of the little dice there, up next to challenge dice.
Yep.
Okay.
Change it to what? Sorry.
7.
And why is that 7?
So I'm glad you asked. So when you succeed at a task, the first thing you do is you roll to see how much work, in other words, boxes that we tick off on this track that we mentioned, that you achieve. And the way you do that is you roll damage. Essentially, you're essentially attacking damage against the task. So you get to roll a dice pool of two challenge dice plus a number of challenge dice equal to the discipline that you use. So because your discipline in engineering is 5, you add that to the 2, and that makes a total of 7.
Got you.
So you can change that to 7, and then you can roll that and see how we go. Does that let you edit it?
It did.
Oh,
and we got. No, it said rolling. Oh, it says rolling 4 dice. So wait a minute. Let's try that again. Oh, wait a minute. It might be a carriage return job. There we go. Yeah, you've actually got to press.
Cool. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Right, go for it. Yeah. Brilliant. Okay, so we did. Oh, bloody hell. Okay, really good. Right, let me just work through that more. So the way that you interpret challenge dice, again, and this is mostly used in combat. Obviously you have, the way it works is 1 or 2 gives you the numerical value that a 1 is a point of stress.
Yeah.
2 is 2. So you've got, for starters, you've got 7 points of stress there. Okay, 3 2s and a 1. Now those little Starfleet emblems are what they call effects. So in combat, if you roll an effect, it normally means that something sort of out of the ordinary happens. So, for example, phasers, the option to increase damage and to use special settings and so on. For the purposes of this, I'm not going to. There is an optional rule where you can have various effects, but for the cases of this, they essentially count as they're just going to count as an extra stress. So that means you've rolled a total of 7, 8, 9 points of stress, which is bloody good. So the resistance of this task is 1, and what that means is in terms of like armor, hit point, it's like armor class, whatever. So we reduce that number of 9 down to 8 because the resistance task is 1, so that takes down to 8. So that means you've done 8 stress. Right, so let's have a little look. Okay, so you've inflicted more than 5 points of stress, which means you also achieve what's called a breakthrough. So this task has what they call a total of 3 breakthroughs that you need to complete. And what this means is there are 3 kind of critical things on the path to success that you need to achieve. So the first thing that you have achieved is the first breakthrough that you have achieved is that you have successfully identified the harmonic, for the sake of a better word, that is causing the antimatter reaction to be blocked. There is some sort of environmental energy field that is causing the antimatter reaction to fail. So your analysis cohorts means that you have successfully been able to identify what that is that's causing the problem. So that's the first hurdle on the way to your task. So I'm just marking off 5, 7, 8 boxes on the stress track. And what that means is you have, as I say, you've achieved your first breakthrough. And otherwise, and the good news is that your difficulty next round of rolls will be reduced down to 2, because again, you've got a handle on this problem. Okay, so what we'll do then is let's move on to the next thing that you need to do. So the next thing that you've got to do is you basically rig up a device which will enable you to nullify action. Now you've realised, because the ship doesn't have any power whatsoever. Last session, basically, I think it was it Karen, was it Kalish who one of you, wasn't it, who figured out that you had portable power units that you could use. Do you remember from the runabout?
Yeah.
Was that you, Mike?
Yeah, I think it was Michael Osterhagen, I think.
Yeah,
It was where we had power units, survival gear, portable power generators.
Okay, so what Giara does then is you send off one of your keen little engineering blokes to go trotting down to a storage locker in engineering, and you have some of these portable power units, and these are still functioning, although at the moment you're charging them. So once they've been, you figured out that once they've been discharged, they were going to be useless, but these are still charged. So he comes back with a couple of these power units, which will allow you to rig up a device tied into the core, which will hopefully be able to nullify the field. So for the next task, how would you like to tackle this? Do you want to go with the same again?
No, I think we'll go with. It feels like it might be a bit of a fiddly task, so I'd say control and engineering.
Perfect. So let's do that then. So if you want to click over onto control, and again, I'm going to give you another focus. Also got the focus of electroplasma power systems, which is basically the power generation ship. So the EPS is what transfers power around the ship. So because that's applicable. So at the moment, again, you've got that'll take you. You've got 2 dice to roll at the moment. Now, looking back at your tasks or your talents again, if I remember rightly,
Technical expertise on a jury rig. There you
You
go.
could do that, or you could go with jury rig. Yeah. So
Yeah, we'll go with jury rig, I think.
and the good news is you can reduce it to a different. So what that means is you're going to take that down to a difficulty of 0, because as you can see there, it says you may reduce the difficulty by 2, and because the difficulty is already at 2, then what that means is you're going to essentially task, and you may generate some more momentum. Now you'll note in that description it does pairs are temporary. However, obviously, if you can get this up and running and you can get the power systems running, then of course you presumably or hopefully carry out more permanent work, because as I say, you're just using jury rigged gizmo to get the antimatter reaction back online, and once use that power to generate a protective shield around the core properly. Does that make sense?
Makes complete sense, yeah.
I'm glad you said that, because I wasn't entirely sure. Great. Okay. So what we'll do then is, so at the moment you've got, so your difficulty's gone down to 0. So it's up to you. You can spend momentum again if you'd like to, either buy a new dice if you like. You can also.
So what are we on? 2 dice at the moment?
You've got 2. As I say, you're not going to fail this. Successive roll will create momentum. So, but I don't know whether you'll get any benefit from buying extra dice, because ultimately you don't need. You're going to succeed unless you roll no successes. You'll succeed at it anyway. If you want to do that, you can, or if you can just leave the momentum where it is.
No, we'll leave the momentum where it is, just in case it's needed outside.
That sounds perfectly good to me. So at the moment you got 2 focuses are in place. So right, if you want to go and roll that for me then, and let's see how we get on, and then we'll get you again. Perfect. 2 successes. Look at that. That's absolutely spot on. Okay, so got 2 successes. So that as I said, although the base difficulty of the extended task is currently at 2, because your talent has reduced that down to 0. So you have succeeded at that task. So I'm going to get McHugh to roll again. And let me have a little look here. I'll just roll for her again using the base dice roller. Okay, and she got a 19. Okay, so she did not succeed. She didn't roll a complication. So if you roll a 20, in sort of, I guess it's a critical failure, and that can have impact. But she didn't roll that. She rolled a 19. At the moment, the range can change, but at the moment it's 20. So good news is you get to roll another 7 challenge dice for me, please.
Right, hold your breath, everyone.
Oh, that's pretty good. What's that? 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Am I reading that right? That's 5, yeah?
Yeah,
Okay,
5.
so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So the good news is you've now filled up some more of the track, and you have also achieved a breakthrough. Again, second breakthrough. So second breakthrough is that you've now managed a typically Trekkie device bolted into the warp core, which when you activate it for the first time in a few hours, there's like artificial. There's something other than the emergency is illuminating the engineering space, and as this field kind of flickers into existence around the core, around the chamber, the last thing you're going to try and do is start of the warp core. So to do that, again,
Control
I think
Delete, isn't it?
you got it. Yeah, exactly right. So how would you roll that? Let me see. Control Delete. Yeah, you can again. So once again, this time the task is going to be so that the difficulty goes back up to 2 because you've used your talent for jury rigging. Now, looking at technical expertise, so you can't invoke technical expertise because that only works if you're using the ship's or sensors. And at the moment, because the ship is powered down, so This might be a good point at which to spend a bit of momentum, possibly, to give yourself another dice. How do the rest of you feel about
sounds
that?
like a good idea. In terms of talents, though, I'm a
Yep.
joined Trill. Do any of my past lives have anything I can call upon?
Perfect. What a good idea. Ah, you see? Perfect. Yeah. Okay. So you may declare. To be honest with you, I think in terms of storytelling, I would say that is probably very, very true. However, looking at the rule specific, it just means that you get to create a focus that you don't already have. And to be honest with you, you're probably this is still going to come under the. But this is slap bang in the middle of your focus warp drive. So to be fair, although I totally, in story terms, yeah, sure, she, one of her previous hosts was clearly an innovative engineer, but in terms of practicality, you just roll
Makes
your
no
dice.
material difference. Yeah, okay.
Not really. So I'll click number 3 again. So you're going to spend a point of momentum, which I've taken off to do that. And you want to go ahead and roll that. Let's see how you get on.
We do get a great flashback scene, though, to your previous life.
We do, yeah.
Right, brilliant. Good.
Brilliant. Look again. Oh, bloody hell. It doesn't normally go this well, does it, chaps? Or am I imagining things?
No.
There we go.
Okay. 2, 3. What's that? 4? 5.
4.
Again, 5. Perfect. Right. So, yes. Okay. Brilliant. So I'm going to get McHugh to assist you again because she's, she's working with you at the console. So let's just see whether she gets you. Oh, brilliant.
Oh, there we go.
That's 2 successes. Okay. So you've rolled a total of 7 successes. So what am I talking about? Yeah, 7 successes and the
bloody hell! Normally we don't roll 7 successes all game.
So resistance of the task is 1, so that takes it down to 6. 6 points of stress, I should say, rather. So the 6 points of stress. So I'm going to get you to. Can you roll your dice pool for the challenge dice for me again, please?
Yeah, we're still at 7 as engineering
we are.
plus 2, isn't it? Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. So what's that? 2, 3. That's 4, 5. Right. Perfect. So great. You filled the track. So what that means is you've managed to restart the engines, and a couple of things happen. So what you've done is you created a protective bubble around the warp core, and that has allowed you to then restart the matter-antimatter reaction. And even you, to be honest, are quite surprised that this has worked. Because to you this method make total sense, and the way you've approached it, you've got your guys on board and problem, but even you are kind of almost a little surprised that it's worked. But there's no denying, as you've restarted the warp core, sure enough, the antimatter reaction restarts, and you can see, as per the image, the warp core column begins to pulse with blue energy, and sure enough, simultaneously around the ship, literally the lights come back on. Up on the bridge, the crew on the bridge see, the displays start to come back on, all the L back into life, and the main viewer comes on. You can hear the lights come on again and start humming around you as the power begins to be restored. And out on, but Kiara. So even though you have a nagging feeling about this, and you can't quite put your finger on what it is. Almost that it seems, although it hasn't been easy. Given what you were seeing 10 minutes ago, you're thinking, I'm not really sure whether this should. But undeniably, as your crew rush to their displays, the ship is coming back to life. Power's back on, the antimatter. And once, what you can do is, now you've got the main engine back online, you can obviously the ship's own power then to drive protective field around the core. So now that you've jump started it, basically, you
Yeah.
don't need those
Yeah.
power units. So anyway, so your guys are all back, and as I say, the only thing is that Kiara stat is sort of looking wistful and thoughtful as everyone else around her is, high-fiving and doing all of that. Great, well done. So that was an extended task, and frankly, that's the best one we've ever done. We don't do many of them because they're overcomplicated, but they are a kind of a mechanic that, again, is it's quite unique to Star Trek Adventures, and it's just about emphasising the nature of a difficult to get through. So hopefully that'll be useful. Well, don't worry, you probably won't get to do many more of those. But anyway, thank you for going through that. That was actually quite useful, and that seemed to work pretty well, I think. Any questions about that, or is everyone happy with where?
No, that was.
Great. Right. So back on the tail, or back on the ramp at the back. As you lot are, you're out there trying to figure out how you guy. And you suddenly see the the running lights come back on, and you can see from inside that where the ramp, the ramp ship, the interior lights have come back on, and you even feel the slightly different pull of artificial gravity from the ship itself, generating the artificial. Right,
Steve,
yeah.
Is that all power or just ship's power? What I'm saying is it?
You have to be more specific than that. What do you mean?
Would the runabout systems be up and running?
You'd have to go and find out.
Okay, I'll go and find out.
Okay. Right. So you go trotting off up the ramp and down into the. Oh, by the way, I don't know. Did I show you this? So let me just change the page for you a little. Don't know if you spotted this graphic, but I'll just change it. Hold on a minute. Bear with me again while I'm moving bloody tracking things about again. Right.
Yay.
So can you see the MSD, the main system display? No, there's the runabout. I put a runabout in there. Look. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So at the moment, you lot are kind of round. I think the ramps are round about here in all the ship, although obviously you're in the middle aft of the ship. So you're essentially on the same deck as the runabout access.
Yeah.
So you can sort of trot back into the ship. You had the airlock closed behind you, even though there was air. There is air in the immediate environment. You cycle through the airlock, and as you're going through, you kind of, I presume, you sort of take your helmet off, and as you go through, you see that the corridors are being cleared of crew members because of internal comms. And as you can see, so the crew are going back to their muster stations or back to their battle station. And anyway, you enter the runabout through. You enter the runabout hangar, and sure enough, it appears that the runabout has power.
Okay, I'll jump into the cockpit and power it up.
Okay, so yeah, you initialize the pre-flight sequence. Up the bridge, obviously the telltale goes off. So Naismith, Peter, sorry, Naismith is the he's captain. Long story, but he's the captain, but he's an NPC at the moment. So he calls down to the runabout and Volta, this is the bridge. What's your situation?
Volta here. This is Kaz. Sorry, Kaz here. This is in the Volta. The Volta's up, power's up and running. I'm going to separate and go and get that guy. Go and get the body we found. The living organism we found.
Wait one. Nathan says wait one, and he sort of mutes the channel. He goes back. He says, "Okay, Kaz, the sensors are back online, and yes, we're picking up that life sign about 100 meters, 150 meters to starboard. So
yeah,
very well cleared for departure."
Is there any other crewmen around in the bridge in the shuttle bay?
No, I'm obviously. I presume you'd. There's like a wall, like in Alien, like the kind of yellow.
But what
I'm
what
sure
I'm
it's more Star Trek than that, but there's warning lights.
I'll on the way back to the thing, I'll grab a crewman and say, "Come with me," and so I've got an extra pair of hands in the shuttle in the runabout.
Okay, perfect. So let's have a look. Who should we grab for you? That's why I like having a crew list. Hold on a minute. Okay, so
It's just a random. It's just a random one. It's just the first. It don't need
okay.
any special.
You grab. There's a crewman called he's a security specialist. Imbram, Tathan Imbram. He's a Betazoid security crewman, and he is he was nearby. So you just grab him, and he kind of follows you into the runabout and gets into the co-pilot seat. Cue special effects sequence with the underside of the Vigilant and the restraining clamps pull back from the runabout. Those of you on the landing ramp, if you are still there, you see the runabout disengage from the underside of the Vigilant, and it drops, and then it peels off slowly, I assume, heading in the direction of the person. So, Mike, I'm going to get you to make a piloting roll here.
Yeah, I'm not even going to fire up the impulse. I'm going to do it on manoeuvring thrusters.
Okay, so I'm going to get you to. Why don't you tell me how you want to do this?
Right, I'm going to approach the being. Fly out to where he is.
Yeah.
On manoeuvring thrusters. I'm not, just casually approach him.
Yeah.
A quick scan, make sure there's still an atmosphere around the ship and around where the guy is. And then open the side door.
Okay.
And see whether we can lasso the guy and pull him in.
You're literally going to lasso him.
Oh,
that'd be awesome.
Yeah, unless there's any other way to grab him. Yeah.
Okay. Right. So you're going to be able to. I mean, which attribute and discipline do you want to use for this? I'm assuming you use con for your discipline. Probably control for your. Can I suggest control for your?
Yeah, probably control.
Okay, so if you want to click those on your character sheet for me, for control and con.
Just trying to get my character sheet to be able at the
moment.
Do it.
I'll set it up.
That's control.
Control and con. I've already done it.
And I'm also using. I've got helmet.
Small craft pilot.
Small craft pilot.
Either. Yeah. So click on a focus. Do you want to spend momentum to buy another dice? Let's go.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to tell you what the difficulty.
Still there?
Yeah, I'm still there. Yeah, I'm still
so you're not going. Basically, I just is this roll for the maneuver or is this just roll just for the?
Yeah, because you just told me what you want to do. So
okay, I didn't know whether knock it up to 3 dice because that's, as I say, I'll pull momentum. Yeah.
Okay, so that means you're down to 0 momentum now.
Okay,
that's fine.
Right.
Steve, can I ask you a question? And you may explain this in the explanation of what happens. But when the runabout passes through the point in which the space spanner, or whatever the hell it was.
Space spanner. It's a hydro spanner. Don't you know anything?
Hydro, of course.
Warp wrench.
When it was about 20 meters, you said that it sort of changed its.
20 or 30 meters. Yeah, it's
properties when it was thrown. I'm just wondering if when he passes that, if he notices in the ship itself.
That's why I ran sensors. That's why I wanted to find out whether we were still.
You might want to cover your eyes because it may explode. I'm just saying. I wouldn't do that. Anyway, would I? Right, go on then.
Yeah. Right,
but that's a perfectly valid question. Yeah, absolutely. I'll take a note of that. So go ahead, Mike.
Right. Roll. Is it rolled?
1 success. Now the good news is because you are flying with the runabout can assist you. Because obviously because you're using the runabout system. So if you give me a second, I'm going to quickly zip over to my little sheet here and I can see what the runabout's. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Steve, can I draw your attention to the pink 0?
Yeah.
It's complication.
I wasn't going to mention that yet, but yeah.
Okay.
No, noted. Okay, so
No, the moment you said pink, I knew I was in trouble.
yeah, no, you are. It might be in trouble. You never know. Right, so let's have a little look.
When you open the door, Mike, the red shirt that you've pulled on board with you gets sucked out into oblivion.
I did tell you that my seatbelt was firmly secure, didn't I?
Yeah.
Right, so the runabout is going to use. Let's have a little look. It's got a. So I'm going to go with computers and on. That's a 10. So just give me a second while I roll that. Was 1D to 1D. Oh, brilliant. Okay. Right. So, and the good news is for you that the runabout automatically. So vessels automatically gain a focus because it's assumed that because they have so many systems that so a starship or a runabout included in that, as long as it rolls below the discipline or equal to or below the discipline, so in the case of the runabout, it has got a con of 2. So because it rolled 2, you gain the benefit of a focus that gives you an extra success. So that means you've scored a total of 3 successes.
Yep.
So your difficulty was 2.
Yeah.
Which means you get 1 momentum. And as Karen mentioned, you also scored a complication, which I will tell you about in a minute.
Can you use the momentum to burn the complication?
You can do. So, you can do, but I'm going to oppose that, and I'm going to buy. If you do that, I'm going to use threat to buy that off.
Okay, then I won't.
So I would probably take the complication. It will become clear as we go ahead. Okay, so you've got 3 successes, and as I say, difficulty of 2, so you've got 1 point of momentum. Bank that. So what happens is the runabout. You said, as you described, the runabout drops from the bottom of the Vigilant. You fly off, and as you penetrate the barrier, there's no physical barrier that you can see, but your instruments, as the distance from the Vigilant increases, and when you reach that similar distance to what Karen observed with the wrench, so 20 or 30 meters away from, instantly, the ensign next to you, he kind of drops to his knees. He's on the chair, and he kind of throws himself, and he's screaming out in agony. He's literally holding his hands to his head, and he's sort of writhing around on the deck, calling out in obvious distress. Simultaneously, so Osterhagen, where are you?
On the ramps.
Okay, as you're standing on the ramp, you turn. You think you hear somebody whispering. It's an odd sensation because, bearing in mind, although you're in an environment suit and you've got your, I'm assuming you had your helmet open, along with the rest of them, and you sort of hear a voice, and it sounds like it's behind you, and so you sort of turn. You sort of, literally, your reaction is instinctive, turn as if, and you see Kalish is nearby, observing what's going on. And you sort of you think, you sort of like, did you say something? And Kalish just looks at you, no. And as you sort of turn back, you can still hear this sound in your mind. And as seconds pass, this sound grows in intensity, to the point where it becomes almost like a shrieking sound. And I'm going to get you to make a roll to try and regain control of your faculties. So can you do me a control or control medicine, depending on what your best result is?
One task.
Let's see how you go on. Say again?
One task.
Yes, if you go into your character sheet, if you go to, let me see what you. I'll give you the option of. Why did I just do that? Oh, that was you. Okay. Okay. Now, do you want to? Right. As you're you concentrate your Vulcan sort of mind, whatever your Vulcan mind technique that you have access to.
Yep.
And you struggle frantically to try and keep control of yourself, because this shrieking, literally there's this agonizing noise, and you just about managed to keep conscious. So can you do that again for me? So you've managed to make a success. Great. Okay. Right. So Kalish, you notice that Osterhagen has dropped to his knees for no apparent reason. He literally dropped, and he's got his hands to the side of the helmet at least.
Okay.
And as you approach him, you see that he appears to be in, he's obviously trying to keep control of him. And Osterhagen, as you manage to sort of filter out this this noise through sheer
Bloody
kind
mind.
of, well, I mean, basically Vulcan mind techniques kick in, and you kind of, you're using your sort of mental control, because even though you don't function as a Vulcan, you don't display as a Vulcan, physically you look like Osterhagen's behavior is rarely, but you do still have the kind of or some of the mental training comes with your species, and so you are able to maintain your faculties, but it's really struggle.
Okay.
Right.
Can I talk?
Yeah, sure.
So I'm gonna.
It's like having a really bad migraine. I mean, I don't get migraines, but it's from what I understand of a migraine, it's like a really bad migraine has hit you, but you can literally hear this wailing sound.
So I'm going to stream over the comms for engineering to shut down the warp core.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, so engineering. Giara, you have
and to fire torpedoes.
enough with the bloody torpedoes. Okay, so engineering. You get this confused comm from a voice that you recognise as Osterhagen, who's the first, the science officer. So how would you like to react?
Okay, why? Why are we shutting down the warp core?
Because something real. So how lucid am I?
Not very, to be honest. I'll tell you what. Make me another roll. This make an insight and. Have you got? Is your medical higher than your? Is that right?
Medicine's 4.
Okay. So I want you to make an insight and science roll, please. So on the comm, Giara, Osterhagen sounds kind of frantic, even though, again, obviously Osterhagen, no one else is hearing shrieking noise, as far as you can tell. Certainly, Kalish is looking at you. Okay, so you realise that this actually happened, not when the warp core was restarted, but when the runabout reached the barrier. I'm going to call it the barrier for want of a better word, but
right.
the timing is such that it was not the warp core that caused this. The warp core was already up and running happily.
Kevin, you should be rolling 2 dice, mate. You're only rolling 1.
Yeah, but to be fair, that's fine. You still succeeded, so I'm okay with that. So you realise that it's not the warp core that caused this issue. It's actually the fact it was when the runabout penetrated the
right. Because my first thought was that the warp core's come on, and that is causing some kind of reaction to a being. However, that's not the case. It's the runabout that's causing a reaction to this being.
Well, so specifically, it was the runabout kind of reaching that distinct reach around the ship.
I'm going to contact Kaz and say shut down your engines.
Okay, so Kaz, on the runabout, you're kind of maneuvering.
I think you're driving through someone. or something.
Just as the comm starts to go, you are kind of trying to attend to your crewman, who's as I say, he's kind of dropped to the ground and is kind of rolling around in apparent agony. He's passed out. It's kind of he literally dropped to the ground and kind of is unconscious. So, what do you want to do? How do you?
Well, does he? I'm assuming he's in a lot of pain. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. He's literally rolling around. He seems to have quietened down now, but maybe because he's probably passed out from the pain.
Okay.
But you can see on his face, he's still obviously he's obviously stressed, but he seems to be unconscious.
Right, go to the med kit, get a sedative, and jab him up.
Okay, that's perfect. So you basically don't get the message from, at the moment, you don't answer comm because, of course, whilst Kevin is paging, or whilst Morgan is paging you, you are administering a hypo spray to the poor unfortunate crewman. So you press the hypo spray up against his neck, and and he kind of settles somewhat.
Yeah.
It's worth noting, however, that so you've not been affected by this, and Kalish similarly.
Just a thought. Does this guy have any? What species did he say he was again?
Betazoid.
They have psionics, don't they? So does Vulcans.
Indeed.
It wasn't he part of the crew when we got like psionic crew members together.
Find out if anybody else.
Indeed.
So who else in that group of 4 or 5 is ill?
Okay. Well, on the right. Okay. Excellent point. I'm going to give you a point of momentum for that. For noticing that link. So that takes your momentum pool up to 2. Okay. And by the way, like I said, I mentioned I spent some of my threat there just to get rid of that, to override you on that complication. So okay, you Prux or Giara, while you're in engineering, so you got this communication from Ostarg, and he seems to have he sort of made this odd demand, and then he's just gone. The channel closes, so you kind of look quizzically, at your other two, your sort of McHugh and Rollins. It's like, what's he going on about? And then next thing you hear is there's an hail. So over the comm, there's a medical team to bridge, medical emergency. And on the bridge, we sort of fade into a view of the bridge, and on the bridge, there's another crewman is suffering similar impact, which is Science Officer Tavak, who's the only other. And she again has kind of dropped to the ground, and is obviously struggling to maintain control. So again, you those of you on the ship hear this over the bridge, but that's what's happened. So you're quite right in noting 3 affected crewmen on board seem to be those with psionic ability. Nobody else roster who has whose species has psionic ability. Even the Trill, so even Yara, so the Trill and the Symb, the Symb and the Trill are joined. They're not their connection is sort of deeper than psionic. It's really telepathy as such. So you haven't noticed any of this. You haven't felt any ill effect. So we know, or it seems to you clear that, and those of you putting it together, that it's 3 crewmen with some sort of psychic ability who have affected. So back on the runabout, Mike, you've kind of calmed down your guy, and you notice that the comm is flashing, which is presumably from Osterhagen. So do you want to answer that?
Yeah, I'll make sure the crewman's settled, and then I'll go and answer the con. Say,
okay,
that's here.
Something you are doing is affecting a presence in the area.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
On a psychic level. So, out of context, is Are we aware that there is does telepathy
Steve.
Oh,
Steve.
sorry, say that again, Kevin. I didn't catch the end.
Does telepathy, the communication, resonate can you pick it up using a sensor, or is that just not?
No, it's I mean, it's scientific fact that certain species have psionic ability, but there is no
sensor.
I'm not aware of there being any precedent where anyone has been able to I mean, I guess it's one of those things. It's Star Trekky sort of science thing. So I guess you could probably argue that you could probably figure it out, but at the moment, no is the answer.
Okay.
So you don't. It's frequent. It's not as well defined as that, if that makes sense.
Okay, so I'm going to tell relay with the information I've just given to Kaz.
Right. The good news is you've managed to regain, like I say, you've kind of fallen back on some old mental disciplines from your youth, and so you've managed to kind of reduce it to a dull buzzing, a bit like tinnitus or something. You can sort of hear it's there, but you're able to function because you've kind of compartmentalized it away.
You create more noise, a different resonance of white noise to clarify. Yeah, I know what you mean. I got that.
Okay, go ahead, Mike. What was that? Yeah.
A computer, back off 100 meters. Back off from current location by 100 meters.
Back off. So you're going to leave the guy floating there?
Well, at the moment, yeah.
Okay. Okay, fine. So the runabout. You kind of thrusters fire, and so you're going back closer to the ship, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Obviously,
so you retreat. Right. Osterhagen. Nothing happens. Still hear the kind of psionic chatter in the background. So even though the runabout withdraws, but nothing changes.
Okay. I suppose we could just go and grab the guy and come back and hope he isn't actually part of the problem.
Okay. So, Mike, what do you want to do? Or Kaz, what do you want to do? Okay.
Well, if it's causing no effect, I'll jump back up into the pilot seat and
proceed with caution.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, I was proceeding with caution anyway, which is why I was only using the thrusters. But again, I'll go and approach the guy.
Okay. No, that's perfectly fine. So you get back into the pilot seat, and you hang on a minute. There you go. I'll run about for you. Right. So you get back into the pilot seat, right about there, and you maneuver the runabout very gradually using thrusters. And I'm not going to make you roll for that because you are an expert pilot. Yeah. You do notice that the runabout is responding sluggishly, and you realise, of course, it's because you are actually in atmosphere.
Yeah.
Because of course you are flying through atmosphere. So although you're keeping you're able to manoeuvre, even though you're in this kind of region where these guys, this guy floating, and the thing, but of course you can still manoeuvre because you have thrusters which are providing manoeuvring capability. So you basically, with a bit of trial and error, you manage to manoeuvre the runabout next to the Lormian, and literally you can open the door and you can essentially grab him.
Yeah.
And you sort of pull him in, and as soon as he enters, and obviously the runabout has artificial gravity, he kind of drops to, it's still like drops 6 foot to the floor, but you pull him inside, and you feel as you pull him across, into the runabout, he kind of seems to be released from the grip of whatever the force is that was.
Okay.
And he kind of drops to the ground. Now,
I'll dump him next to our unfortunate crewman and jump back in the pilot seat.
Okay, right. So, what do you want to do? Do you want to check him out now, or do you want to ship?
I'll get I'll turn the ship around and head back to the Vigilant.
Okay, so, right. Meanwhile, sorry.
One last thing, and I'll call medical team to docking bay. Send a medical team to the docking bay.
Right. Okay. Cool. So right, you jump back, basically cautiously head back to the ship. Right. In engineering, Giara, you get a Naismith, who's said that he's the acting captain, or he's the captain. He says, Giara, can you report to the bridge, please?
Aye, Captain. On my way.
Great. So I'll just drop you onto the
Take the
bridge.
first immediate turbo lift to the bridge.
Brilliant. Right. Okay. So there's the bridge
This first time
icon.
Nathan's had somebody actually follow his orders, isn't it?
Yeah, you could be right. Okay. So right. So bridge. Naismith is there, and yeah, as you enter the bridge from one of the side doors, you do notice that Tavak here is kind of sat on the deck in the corner. There's a medical technician with her trying to assist her. Obviously trying to regain control of her sense. And Naismith turns as you enter, swivels on his chair as you enter the bridge, and he says, "Oh, nice work. How on earth did you manage to restore power?"
We got to engage my brain now. We erected a field around the warp core, which disrupted the interference which were preventing the matter-antimatter conversion to going ahead, which seems to have stabilized the core, brought power systems back online, and now that's self-cycling, so the warp core is effectively protecting itself.
It was a funky Faraday cage.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, only my mobile phone doesn't work. Yeah, that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that's what my Wi-Fi is crap, but other than that, we're all good. So yeah, he Naismith as well, some work commander. Do you see any? Does there seem to be any risk that this situation is likely to change, or do things seem stable?
It all went a little bit smoothly, Captain, to be honest. And there is just something in the back of my mind that says it just shouldn't have gone quite as simply as that.
He says, "I know what you mean. There's something about this whole situation which seems..." And as he says that, as you're looking at him, you see his face. There's like a bright bluish reflection on his face, and as you turn in the center of the head of your bridge, you see a blue sort of halo of energy begins to fade into view, and as you're watching, you see a familiar figure. And if you bear with me 1 second, because again, I think I did an image for this one. Oh yeah, there. You see a familiar figure begins to resolve
If it's
from
that damn letter of the alphabet, we're in trouble.
What's that? Oh no!
So if it's that letter of the alphabet, we're in trouble.
Can you see that image there?
Yep.
Help me, everyone. You're my only hope.
Good point. Good one. So this is Ash Tamalia, who is the Tilikal, the member of the Tilikal species that you encountered on the surface of the camera. So this race appear to be humanoid. They're like winged humanoids, and you encountered her on the surface of Candidate 3, and it was her plea for assistance that has kind of brought you here. And as you're as I say, as you're talking to the captain, as I say, she begins to solidify slightly, and she says, "Avia, you slipped through my fingers. I thought I'd lost you. I've waited for years." And her voice kind of echoes off strangely. And she almost looks over her shoulders. Mannerism where she sort of turns and looks to one side. Hurry, we must leave this. And then, as she says that again, she fades almost as quickly as she appeared, and again the bridge kind of falls back to its normal light. the kind of, you can hear the hum of the systems and everything. And Naismith looks slightly confused, and that things return to normal. Now, we're going to take a break for 2 minutes. I'm just going to make a cup of coffee and that. I'll be back in a minute. So everyone just
I have a quick question before you disappear.
go on. Yeah, no problem.
Why is it on the picture that the our crew seem to be in the head bay of a Constitution class starship?
Yeah, I noticed that as well, but that's just from the book. So
Is it any?
maybe somebody was just watching like reruns or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But trust you to focus on that, Mike. Focus on that. Focus on the middle bit. Focus on that bit. What was that?
I was looking at a tit. Sorry,
Of course you were.
I did see.
Right.
Yeah.
Why is it that time? Is it that time of the decade for you again?
I'll tell you.
Right, I'm going to go on mute for a couple of minutes. I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so just talk amongst yourselves, or we'll go and have a loo break or whatever. All right.
Yep.
Cool.
So she said that she's found us again. So one assumes that she'd obviously lost us. So that would indicate there's more than one player of, I guess, cosmic level powers play. So we've been drawn into some nether region, which reverses everything. So kind of a pocket universe. And we're assuming this is a projection. So she is mentally projecting herself into the ship. So if that's the case, when we went out and broke the barrier, we were able to break that, I guess, mental. Whoever was hiding us, we were able to break that mental, psychic fog that was causing us to be hidden by going outside of the breach. So the guy that we've just brought in, either us going out kind of triggered, we're here, a GPS, we are here, or by bringing the guy in, it triggered the unclouding of where we are. It doesn't help us get out, but it means that.
But I think, to be honest, I think she's probably got. Let's face it, she brought us to where we are now. Right, yes. She didn't control it, so I would think getting out of this area of space now she's around is probably least of our worries.
No, yeah, that should be it. As long as we can keep the contact up with her as much as possible. So, if memory serves, did me and the other two psychics, will we able to create a psychic link?
I don't.
Didn't we do some kind of super mind meld? And we did something. We were all in the room together, and we did something. I can't remember what we did.
You're right.
Thing we did.
I thought we just went into the room and we basically saw a projection. She said, come and help us. When time's right, I will come.
Because I remember doing a mind meld with the three other people, the three other psychics, and I thought we could use that to amplify.
Maybe. To be brutally honest, I can't remember.
That was a while ago.
Yeah.
Let's ring a bell.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah.
I honestly can't remember.
No.
Probably Steve doesn't either, to be honest with you. You never know.
Well, it did affect the three psychics.
Yeah.
So,
our psychic guy, again, that's the other thing I was going to ask. So you see, you're up and running, aren't you? You're back.
Yep.
Just wonder whether the rest of them are still down.
Because that's a classic trap the wizard first before moving on. So if the psychics have been nobbled for a particular attempted to be nobbled for a particular reason, it then goes to suggest by getting the three of us back together and attempting another mind meld, if whatever we did last time worked, we might be able to get it working again. But I can't remember what we did.
No, I can't either.
But that's all I got.
Don't,
That's as
you
far as
don't-
my thinking on something.
Erin, you don't remember, do you?
I remember it happening. I can't remember the reason.
Can't remember the outcome. No, there was something about mind melds, but something about something.
Has he posted that one? Has he posted that one up yet? We got to listen to that.
Well, do you remember? I can't remember when it was.
Well, it had to be in the last scenario, wasn't it?
No, it was a while back. It was a while back and it had nothing to do with the Tilly Carl.
No,
I don't think.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's one.
It was a while back. You just did some freeway connection, didn't you? For some reason, I can't remember why.
probably some harebrained thing.
Yeah.
That with
Wasn't that the? As I say, the only time we've come across, the two times we come across it, or yeah, it's like the first scenario where we went to the planet and we come across the assessor,
Uh-huh.
and then you remember the first time we went down and found the ruins and the assessor was there.
Yeah. So the first time we came across it, or the time I think you're talking about, we came across this Tilly Carl. Wasn't it a recording?
Yeah, it was.
Oh, do we know whether or not this is a recording? Because you seem to think she's talking to you, but I think it might just be a recording.
Possibly.
Yeah.
So
what I'm on about is like the first one is when we first went to Candidate 3, and remember the Romulans were there. We had a fight with them and they took it off.
Yep.
We went in and we saw the recording.
Yep.
And then the second time we went down, it was to get the assessor off and try and get the bits off the planet before other planet hit it.
Yeah,
I think
that time we spoke to them, didn't we?
Yeah. The other Vulcan that's on that collapsed on the brig. Wasn't she possessed by something? Isn't that why we tried the mind meld to get into the back of her head?
That doesn't ring a bell.
No.
Possibly no. I can't remember.
No. Oh well.
Was she one of the? Was she maybe one of the ones who was affected by the parasites? I think.
Could be.
No, I don't think it.
Oh,
Anyway, what did I miss anyway?
So, we hypothesizing that either by leaving the external barrier, that caused a. So we're assuming that something is creating some kind of mind fog around our ship. By leaving the barrier, we kind of set off the GPS, or by bringing the bloke into the barrier, we set off the GPS, enabling her to show up. Either show up, to find it either a mental projection or as recording. So the thing I was working on was that we at one point we had the three psychics, me and the Vulcan, did some kind of mind meld to do something.
I do remember. I do vaguely remember that.
I can't remember what it was, but I'm wondering whether we could attempt a similar to enhance, amplify what we're either seeing or the communications. But I can't remember.
You can, yeah. That certainly is that's a thing you can do. Let's just right. So a couple of practical things. So firstly, you're on the runabout, Kaz. You've returned to the Vigilant, the Lormian.
Yeah, I'm in the process of docking.
Okay, so the Volta, the Volta something different. The Volta. As I say, you manoeuvred the Volta underneath the. By the way, Kalish, have you and Osterhagen come back inside, or are you still on the ramp?
Technically, we were still on the ramp. We hadn't had reason to move.
No, because I would be in a bit of distress, so I would still be on the ramp.
Fair enough, that's fine. So in that case, from your perspective, you see the Volta delicately manoeuvre under the Vigilant and raises up into the docking cradle.
And there was a med team ready.
Yeah. So as you dock, the hangar bay repressurize. You sort of open the runabout hatch. The medical team come on board and they start attending to the two casualties. So with what was his name? Crewman Imbram, who's the Betazoid male. First of all, the medical officer kind of runs the tricorder over him, and
I tell him I sedated him, and
yeah, she says Commander, he's suffering from his synapses have been massively stimulated. I think we're going to have to put him into we'll put him into a medical coma or stasis for now. And they kind of she's got two orderlies with her who kind of a floating stretcher and kind of rush him off, and then she then turns. So the Lormian, as we
Steve,
yeah.
Can you check your connections because you're going very Norman Collier?
Am I? Okay.
Yeah, at least to
Give
me.
me 1 second. And what about the rest of you? Can you hear me? Or am I...
Agreed. Yeah, it's all a bit Norman Collier.
Cutting in and out, Steve.
Right, hold on.
That's Norman
Did
Cook.
Norman Collier rap? I just wondered.
I think he's doing a Norman Cook.
Is that any better? Is that any better?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. Cool. Right. Lovely. Yeah. Thanks for that. Yeah. Do give me. They work. They seem to work better, but I have to keep an eye on them not running out of charge. So that's cool. Lovely. Okay. So as I say, the Lormian is a Organ 3 being the planet that got mullered towards the end of the last season of our adventures, and yeah. Hello.
Yeah, I'm still here, but you're still a bit breaky uppy.
Am I? Okay. I'm doing what I can do about that. Really, I'm on AirPods. I'm on the good Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll persevere. If it gets any worse, just let me know. Right. Anyway, so she scans the Lormian. Vital stable, but his synaptic activity is very low. We'll need to do a proper scan in sick bay. So she again calls for another couple of orderlies to come and grab the guy, and they will head off to sick bay. Right. So Kaz, what do you want to do now?
Basically head up to the bridge.
Okay. Right. So
no, what's it? Because there's no.
Okay. So you head up to the bridge. So you enter the corridor. So you come out of the hangar bay, and you sort of step into the corridor. And as you step into the corridor, you suddenly realise that you are standing on the plains of Kate, i.e., your homeworld. And as you turn around. So you, as I say, you step out of the door. The door open. You kind of stride purposefully out of the into the corridor, and as you look up and the Vigilant, and you seem to be on your home planet, and you turn around, all around you, you are on Kate to all intents and purposes, as far as you.
Lost him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Am I still here?
Basically, and that's all I heard.
Okay, so to all intents and purposes.
As long as it's not the Elysium Fields, I'm not worried.
No, to all intents and purposes, then you are on Kate, which is your homeworld.
Yeah. Okay.
So what are you going to do?
I'm going to look around. Bearing in mind I've got heightened senses, and I know what thing. This is going to sound weird, but does it smell and look like my homeworld?
It certainly does.
Okay, because the rational part of my brain is telling me this can't be happening, but
check each of your senses.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a bit difficult to do. I mean,
Which,
if it smells like home and it looks like home, it's
You feel a tap on your shoulder, and
okay. I tell.
as you feel the tap and you sort of turn, then all of a sudden you're looking at the medical officer, and she's, "Commander, are you okay? You seem to sort of drop out on me there for a minute." And as you look
No,
around, you realise you're back in the corridor on the Vigilant. She's with you.
who's with me? Is it the doctor?
So the
or?
medical officer is with you.
I said no, doctor. I appear to be hallucinating. It must be the effects of this place.
And she runs a tricorder over you. Well, yeah, there seems to be there's definitely some residual energy. It seems to have returned to normal.
Mm.
How are you feeling?
At the moment, how am I feeling? At the moment, am I feeling fine? I'm asking the GM here. How am I feeling?
Yeah, you feel okay. You feel confused, obviously.
Okay, yeah.
But you certainly feel. I mean, you don't feel ill.
No.
Out of control. But you
My,
obviously disoriented.
my second question is: Did I see the? No, I wouldn't have the apparition of the Ilikari.
You weren't on the bridge, so you didn't see that.
Exactly. So I didn't see that.
No. Right. Meanwhile, on the
Just a thought. Could it be? And this is just to everybody. Could it be? If anybody else has these hallucinations, could it be? Could the what's affecting other crewmen and stuff be her attempts to communicate with us?
possibly.
She's forcing an energy field to try and break through to communicate with us. This is the effect of it.
Okay, possibly. On the fantail, or on the, I call it the fantail, on the landing, college. As you are talking with Osterhagen, and as your sort of attention wanders for a second, you suddenly find yourself in a temple. You look around and you've looked at Osterhagen, and he seems to have disappeared from your, literally seems to have disappeared from your. Turn around in surprise. You can see that you are in a Klingon temple of some sort.
Computer, end program.
Nothing happens, and as with Kaz, you are kind of, your senses kind of overload you. The certainty that you are where you appear to be. You look around and you obviously Klingon. You smell and you feel the heat, and there's nobody else around you, but you've been to this place before.
Are there any sort of dust or gravel or stones I can pick up off the floor?
Yes, there is a sort of there's a fine stony fine stone on the ground, and you pick it up and you feel it in your. And again, you are utterly convinced that you are in this temple that you visited before. Possibly it's your family shrine, but it's so familiar to you. And then again, as your mind accepts the reality of where you are, Osterhagen interrupts you. He's presumably still, talking through his theory. And as you refocus again, you return to reality, and you're back on the tail of the ship, as if you've never left.
Is the stone still in my hand?
No.
Okay.
But you can still feel it. You can almost feel its grittiness there, even though you're wearing gloves. In reality, because you're in an environment.
Yeah.
In your vision, you were in your, you weren't wearing gloves, and you can almost still feel the grittiness beneath your fingers, even though that's clearly impossible.
Yeah. Okay.
Giara, you
Yeah.
returned from, so having encountered the Tilikal on the bridge, you're heading back to engineering, which seems to be the most sensible place for you to be at this point. And as you are, you exit the bridge and you head for a turbo lift. You suddenly see ahead of you another figure which looks very much the Tilikal that you saw on the bridge. However, this is clearly a male, and he seems almost he's like a ghost. And you see him walking down the corridor with arms outstretched towards you.
Okay.
Now you hear no sound. You don't hear him, although his mouth seems to be moving, and he seems to be almost welcome, stretched, almost as if to embrace. And as you're thinking that this is clearly a hallucination again, then you can see that there's a crewman further down the corridor who's also standing looking at this apparition. So obviously this is not something you are seeing. And as you watch, as he sort of gets nearer to you, he then sort of just essentially drifts apart. He fades away, and you're left back in the corridor again. Right, Osterhagen, what are you doing? You're back on the and you've just seen Kalish kind of seem to almost fade out for a minute.
We need to get to the brig.
The brig? Why?
Brig. No, we need to get to the bridge. We need to run some sensors.
Excellent point. Yes, you can. And now you can do that. So, okay. So those of you then. So as you're heading through the ship, so you come back off the tail. Kalish, are you going to stay out there, or are you going to come back in?
I don't think I've got much reason to stay out here, so I will also come back in.
Okay, so you both come back on board the ship, and you get out of your and head for the bridge. And again, as you're walking through the corridors, heading for the turbo lift, again you see a couple of other crewmen who again seem to be in that same kind of slightly trance-like state that Kalish that you just experienced.
Yep.
And if you if you kind of interrupt them, if you go up to them and touch them, they kind of snap out of it, and they say, "Oh, I don't know what happened. Come on, I don't know what happened, Sergeant. I was back on Earth. It's the most strange thing." And you see this repeated a couple of times as you're going through the corridor.
This is a matter of interest.
Mhm.
Does this seem to be the dreamy state that we appear to be falling into? Is this what the I can't remember the name of it, the guy who we rescued?
What? Sorry.
Brains. You know the guy we picked up, the alien we picked it up from the planet.
Critic.
Not
Yep.
the guy I picked up. I can't remember.
The Lormian guy.
Lormian. Oh, the Lormian.
Lormian.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right,
sorry.
the Lormian.
Lormian. Did he seem to be in a similar state to the guy, to what crew had sort of like? Does he seem to be in the same sort of trance-like state that the crew are dropping in and out of?
Well, that's an excellent observation. So you don't know. You're not a medic. However,
No. He got the same glazed look over his face.
he does. However,
Right.
he's not responsive. In other words, you obviously touched him when you brought him on board the runabout, and he didn't seem to acknowledge your presence. So although with everybody else that you've seen who's experienced this, and yourself, all it takes seems at the moment is an external stimulus, whether it be somebody sort of talking to you or touching you, and you sort of snap out of it.
But
And
it's
Yeah, the
again,
next
with
person
him,
I witness experiencing this, can I get some tricorder readings on them?
you certainly can. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, that's okay. Brilliant. Right. So yes. Okay. Why don't we? Okay. So you're walking up. You've reached the top deck. You're heading for the bridge, and again, you come across a crewman who clearly seems to be in the same sort of raptured state, or at least trance-like. He's literally just standing there. So yes, if you'd like to make a tricorder, let's do that. So why don't you go with? I'll let you pick what your best option is. Obviously, science likely to be one of them, and then what fit to use. That I'll remind you, you've got a couple of points of momentum knocking about. If you want to use one of those.
Okay. I'm wondering if insight is probably because I'm using a tricorder, so it's
Makes perfect sense to me. Yeah.
And did you say science? It probably would be, wouldn't it?
I think so. Just because, yeah, you're. I mean, obviously, if you want Osterhagen, either Osterhagen can scan because he's with you, right, and he can scan or he can assist. Either way, is fine with me.
Yeah, because I'm only rolling at a 10, so maybe Osterhagen is he's the science chappie, so maybe Osterhagen
Insight.
takes this role.
Control or insight? Reason and science. I'm going with.
Whichever you think, go for it. Let me know. Let's see. 2 successes, perfect. Okay, so you're gonna gain a point of momentum because that was a difficult task. Okay, right. So you've got 2 points of momentum now, and okay. So you scan this crewman, and there seems to be some sort of a detectable energy field around him. It's very faint. Very, very faint, and almost undetectable. The tricorder picks up a barest trace of it, but it's definitely there. But as you scan him,
Yeah.
and he comes out of it, and as you see on your tricorder, that field dissipates. It returns to normal background readings.
Okay, so first of all, I'm going to go to with information. Run to MedLab.
Yeah.
Scan the guy we brought in, and then go to my station.
So, as a player, I just want to put this out there. I feel like someone might be trying to send us home, and in doing so, is sort of individually sending us home-ish.
Yeah, that's a good theory. And let's see where we go with that. So, Osterhagen, so Kalish, you said you were going back to the bridge.
Yeah.
Okay, so you head for the bridge, and you enter the bridge, and obviously, Naismith greets you as you arrive, and says, "Sergeant, how are you?"
A little disorientated. How are things up here?
Much the same. Ensign Tavak suffered some kind of a psionic attack, and she's been taken down to sick bay.
Yeah, as did Osterhagen. He seemed to recover himself, though.
We've also become aware that members of the crew have been experiencing hallucination, and so I've ordered the medical team I've ordered Dr. Plume to investigate, and I understand Osterhagen's on his way to medbay to run some further scans. Sergeant, I'm going to ask you. Can I ask you to run a full tactic scan around the ship to see if we're alone out here?
Of course, and I'll take my console.
Great. So I'll come back to you in a second. So right. Meanwhile, back in engineering, Yara, you return to engineering, and as expected, you'd learn that some of your crew have experienced similar experiences, although not everybody affected yet, but a couple of them are looking a little bit white-faced as you come in. But is there anything in particular you'd like to do in engineering first? To carry on, or
yeah, it seems to me that the matter-antimatter converter was basically out of phase, and we effectively shielded it to bring it back in phase. Now, that I'm wondering, what is the probability, and possibly explore this hypothesis with my assistant engineer or whatever they are, of what's the possibility of extending that shielding around the entire ship?
That is an excellent idea. And what we'll do is we'll come back to that in a minute. Yeah, but yes, so you grab McHugh, not literally, but you kind of have a chat with her and run through. And what we're talking about is it's basically as we mentioned, that you set up a harmonic field, and you managed to find the harmonic frequency which seemed to shield the vigilant warp core, at least, from the effects of this dimension. And so what you can do is you can apply that same principle to the main shields. You could raise the shields, and in theory you can adjust shield to match that frequency.
Same
so
harmonic.
So that certainly is an excellent tactic, and we'll come back to that in a minute. I want to just deal with Osterhagen.
Okay, very good.
Okay, so Osterhagen, you head to Medbay, run your. You recognise the Lormians from Organ 3. If you remember, just to again give Peter a bit of background, the Lormian planet, the USS Venture, which was a Galaxy class ship, was assigned to Organ 3 several months ago when it was determined that the planet was on its way to basically blowing itself apart, and so the Venture was engaged rescue operation in basically relocating the Lormian population system had been carrying on for months, and in fact one of your previous chief engineers, Lieutenant Storek, had actually transferred to the Venture to a mission. So you're familiar with this species, and as the medical officer said earlier, this sample of the species is lying there, and he's not even comatose. He's just completely inert. The medical scanner on tells you that he's breathing and that his biological function is working. But he seems to be almost like a blank slate. And the medical officer sort of nods at you. Dr. Plume sort of wanders over. Is Plume still smoking, Karen? I can't remember.
Maybe not in this environment.
Maybe not. But he's definitely got his sleeves rolled.
Is he standing?
No, he never stands.
No. He rolls his chair over. He turns in his chair as you sort of enter. He says, Commander, what can I do for you?
We've had some instances of crew members almost phasing out in their mind from this reality to their homelands. I want to see whether our Vulcan friend and the chap we brought in are experiencing the same. I detected minute little energy signatures. I want to see if they have got the same energy signatures. That will allow me to extend my hypothesis.
Sure. He says Tavak is resting over there, and he gestures because obviously the sick bay is not very big. Is it in? I can remember the Vigilance sick bay is pretty pokey, if I remember right. And so he sort of gestures. There's another bio bed, sort of, I don't know, just to the other side of the other side of the. I'm just having a look on the old plat. It doesn't really matter. Anyway, yeah, he gestures over to Vac. So she's lying on one of the other. There's like 3 bio beds in the chamber. So she's lying on one of them and seems to be sleeping. her reactions are definitely different to the Lormian. In other words, she seems to be sleeping, be comatose, whereas she. So you can, if you want to run a scan on her, go ahead. So again, same roll, please. Say again.
That's her, and that's him.
Yeah. So that's what. Okay, perfect. Successes on both. Great. So you look at your tricorder, and you've gathered. You've got a bit more information on that energy reading that you were picking up. And so you said you were going to head. Where were you going to head to after that?
The bridge.
Right. Okay. So you head for the bridge.
Because I don't know that that the engineering chap has seen someone walking around the corridor, do I?
I say again.
So I don't know that.
No, the Giara. No.
Okay.
Okay. No. Just as you're leaving, Plume says to you, "I'm going to try. I'm going to try applying some sort of cortical inhibitor to the Lormian. I'm just programming it now, and he's got like a it's like a device that's designed to fit across your forehead. And he says, I'm just programming it now. I'm going to try and mess with some of the frequencies to see if I can try and regain some of his neural. I'll keep you informed." And then he goes back to his work, fiddling with his device, trying to see if he can come up with a treatment. As I say, Tavak seems much more comfortable, but is resting, and as I say, he's sedated probably. And you are still detecting in the background this kind of low buzz in the back of your mind, but you've got it under control for now, at least. So, right. So in engineering, right. So Giara, you've gathered your guys. I'm not going to make you go through a big extended test again because you've already done the whole. Because you now understand at least the fundamentals of what you're trying to do here.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if you just want to go with a roll, I'm going to give you a focus of warp drive again, and then just go with it. Obviously, that's two dice. Spend. You've got 2 points of momentum, so you can buy another dice if you like. I'll leave that up to you.
Yeah, let's spend a point of momentum. We'll buy another dice.
Yeah, do that then. So yeah, knock it up to 3. As I say, so focus applies, and then go with control and engineering, and let's see what you get.
Yeah. One for a penny.
Oh, nice. Good job. Okay, so that task was a difficulty 3. So it's quite tough. That was quite a tough challenge, but you've managed to succeed, and you've also basically point of momentum back into the pool. So you've generated a point of momentum. So you've notified the captain what you were trying, and as you are, and the ship's energy, the ship's shields, essentially flicker from outside. You would see a kind of a ripple of energy go through the bubble surrounding the ship, and as this happens, Osterhagen, you feel the this buzz at the back of your brain sort of subsides significantly. So although you can still just about hear it if you concentrate, it's like you've got a toothache and you've taken a. You can the pain sort of subsides, and if you concentrate, you can tell that it's still there, but it.
And that's as soon as you turn the device on.
Yes, as soon as you turn the device on. So all they've done is they've just basically adjusted the frequency that the shield is operating at, and it is, as I say, the effect is definitely reduced, and simultaneously, in sick bay, the crewman, the Betazoid crewman who was on the and Tavak, both their kind of neural readouts on the biobed begin to normalise. So Plume will notice, because it will have set a warning on sense. So he stands from his, or he doesn't stand. Of course, he doesn't stand. He looks from his chair and sees that the kind of the boom boom, the indicators on the biobeds, and it shows that the neural stimulation is beginning to fade, or at least has faded down to a much reduced level. So he sort of will reduce the medication. What he does is he reduces the medication just slightly to sort of bring her around from sedation a little bit, just to make sure that she's under control. And so basically that harmonic change has definitely had an effect. Now, the one thing, Giara, is you look at your readouts and you're kind of analysing the wave, and you can see that although you've managed to block kind of 90 this EM energy that seems to be causing some of this effect, you can still see that some of it is still getting through, so much reduced, but you can see that you sort of are tweaking the harmonics with your team to see if you can filter it all out, quite get blocked. But you've definitely reduced it massively, at least for now. So good job. Okay. Right. Let's have a little look. Right, so Kalish, you're up on the bridge.
Yep.
So do you want to make a... So again, just use your... just make a bit of science roll as before.
Yeah, science and insight.
Yeah.
One success.
Okay, so the sensors... also, I'm going to roll for the ship, because, of course, you're being assisted by the ship sensor, so just give me a second. Okay, that's a success. So that's 2 successes. That gives you a point of momentum, and you've got... Right, okay, so you do a scan, and your sensor readings are somewhat inconclusive in that you cannot detect an edge to this region of space that you are in. So, in other words, it doesn't appear to be tech.
Okay.
I know it was proposed last time that this might, a kind of a structure or a region that would, certainly, at least as far as your sensors can tell. And
they're going out a fair way, are they? It's not as though they're being interrupted, and
they are going out a fair way, but they are not as effective as they would be. So back at the real world, you have like 3 sets of sensors. So you have proximity sensors, which are very, very short.
Yep.
You have medium range sensors, visual. So that's like what you can see on your display. And then ships, Federation ships also have long range sensors, which can up to several light years in range. But they are usually used for detecting stellar phenomena. So in other words, you don't have much resolution. Yes, you can see the stars around you and so on. But normally, medium range sensors, what you operate on, because that gives you visual, scanning for ships, that kind of thing. So the long range sensors are inclusive, although technically they have although the Vigilant doesn't have the range of a Galaxy class, it does have the sensor suite, which, if you remember, we were fitted with. So your sensors are pretty good. They're not, as I say, they're not the best in Starfleet, but they're not bad. But your sense not able to go much beyond, what you would normally do with your medium range. Within that range, pretty much what you've already seen, the crystalline structures that you have that you're surrounded by are as far as the sensors can detect.
Okay.
And the environmental condition of this area or this dimension, whatever it is, that you detected seem to be present as far as your sensors can see. So in other words, there is atmosphere of some sort, there is some sort of gravitational attraction. But that, again, you cannot determine the source of that gravitational force. There's no planetary bodies, there's no stars, there's just open space, basically.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm not picking up any other ships.
Correct.
Could it be because as we were offline, if they were also offline, would I not pick them up because they were offline, or that would be irrelevant? If they were there, I'd pick them up.
That's a good question, and the truth of the matter is, you don't honestly know.
Yeah. Okay.
Everything you normal science. The sensors, I mean, they're not. It's not radar, but the sensors operate on a massively wide variety of forces. So not only do they detect mass, so they can scan for gravity. So in other words, if there's a planet, you can detect it because of its gravity influence. You can detect, the sensors can detect it because of its mass. They can detect it because there's various things that sensors look for. They're a kind of a weird, hand wavy sort of system, but they're not reliant just on like radar where it bounces sound waves back. It uses all sorts of different methods. So everything tells you that if there was a ship, I mean, you can see these crystals, for example, so you can detect the mass of these crystals, spread out all around you and as far as the sensors can see. Now,
am I right in thinking, Steve, that there were other bodies floating around, or was it just the one?
Okay, so you saw the one.
Yeah.
And from your sensor readings, you don't see anything else that detects. Certainly not within range.
Yep. Okay.
So as far as you know, he's the only. But other than that, as I say, the sensors simply back up what you know. There is atmosphere of some sort. There is some sort of gravitational force. So there is an up and a down.
Yeah.
There is light, but you can't detect where that light is coming from. There's no stars. There's no planets. Certainly nothing within range.
Okay.
So again, slightly inconclusive. Certainly not. You're confused a little bit because as with Giara and this engineering situation, kind of your experience and your expertise tells you one thing, and your senses are telling you something different. So in other words, everything you know says that your senses, but you're looking at them and they're not telling you that. They're not telling you where the edge of the system is. They're not going out to 10 light years or whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
Much as Giara was, convinced that engineering thing, although it, but there's an element of doubt. There's an element of something not going on here.
Okay.
One other thing. Can I get you to make one more roll, please? Because I've got another thing I want to see if you can detect.
Yep. Same roll again.
Yes, do the same again. That'll be fine.
No good. We've got momentum, haven't we?
Yeah. Do you want to spend a point of momentum and re-roll that?
Yeah, please.
Go for it. Yeah.
2 successes.
Cool. Perfect. Okay. Well, that's great. So then you get your momentum back anyway. So it was just a 1. Okay. Right. So what you do detect. So you spend some time, and as you are analysing the readings from, and again, Osterhagen joins you on the bridge. So you still there, Kevin?
Yeah. Sorry, you
That's
broke
right.
up.
That's fine. That's okay. Am I back on? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're back on the bridge, and you enter the bridge, and as you kind of come over, so you sort of Naismith, who's just looking at the viewer. You've got like a nondescript pilot sitting at the con, and you come over and you shoulder who's at tactical, because your station is right there. And as you approach her, and Kalish, on your display, you're kind of running the sensor, and you're looking at this harmonic, this energy field that you detected, and you're collating it with what you had from, you had the scan of the crewman.
Yep.
And Osterhagen, as you enter the bridge, you see the wave is up on the display over Kalish's console, and you recognise it as being almost identical to the wave detected from the crewman. And Kalish, you've determined that same waveform is kind of what was causing the bubble around the ship. So you remember when you threw the wrench and it transitioned from sort of normal physical law into this realm space.
Yep.
Your scans have shown you that this bubble, if for want of a better word, is what is surrounding the ship, and it's the same. You can see Osterhagen that this waveform is almost identical, not quite, but almost identical to the waveform that was fading from the crewman scan, and similarly from Tavak and from the Lormian. So there seems to be some correlation between that.
Have we? So where were we before we vanished?
So you were in the Candidate 3 solar system, just above the Candidate. It was the planet, the planet with all the alien ruins on it.
Yep, and we had sensors, a sensor array. Didn't we have some kind of long-range probes that we'd sent out around the ship?
Yep, you did.
Okay. I'm going to go to my console and attempt to contact one of those, that sensor array.
Okay, you can do that. Well, the probes.
Yeah.
Sure.
I've got a funny feeling we haven't actually left the system.
You can try that. Do you want to make a? I guess that probably an insight and.
Insight and science. So my hypothesis is we are still back in that system, and something is we actually all passed out, and we are just in a kind of mind fog.
Okay, have a go. Okay, one success. You cannot prove that to be the case. There's nothing in your readings which back that theory up. You can't get navigational data, for example. So there you've got sense. Your navigational data is kind of useless because you've got no reference point.
Right.
So your navigational show the Vigilant in regard to crystals and energy flares that you've seen going off intervals, but as far as you can, and that doesn't mean you're wrong. It just means nothing in your readings will prove that.
I'm attempting to do an IP ping of the so something really crude and basic.
I get you. So you're looking to see if you can see the probes, and you tried that, and you get nothing. There's no response from that at all. So the ping times out.
Okay.
As you are working on the bridge, you suddenly become aware, all of you. So those of you on, and in all through the rest of the ship, so including engineering, and Kaz, where are you?
I was on the bridge. I was making my way.
Oh, you're on the bridge as well. Okay.
When I tripped out.
So on the bridge and around the ship as well, you are become aware that there is almost like an area of smoke starts to appear on the bridge, kind of here. So Naismith kind of, turns to look at it, and obviously all of you on the bridge spin around. Meanwhile, down in engine, and all through the ship, there's like a intruder alert goes off. There's like the yellow alert comes on, and like intruder alert clacks sounding, which is interesting because when those of you on the bridge in particular, when Tamara, the intruder alert systems were not triggered. If you remember, although she appeared and seemed to speak to you, the internal sensors did presumably see her as a intruder, whereas this area of smoke that is beginning to coalesce on the bridge, something has set off the internal sensors. Excuse me. So what would you like to do, anybody?
From my console, can the computer locate the intruder? So just get a bit more of a idea of exactly where the intruder alert is coming from. Is it the bridge?
Yes. So your internal sensors are registering this disruption, and as you watch this, you sort of twist in your seat because your intruder console is saying bridge, and you twist to look at it, and all of you on the bridge look. And as you watch this, you see a figure begin to sort of resolve from within this cloud of smoke, and you almost get a glimpse, the kind of effect, a transport sparkle, which this basically looks very different. The image of Ash Tamala, and
Is it her?
This appears to be a male. It's a dark-skinned human from what you can see, but you can't really make out any features. Is there anything you'd like to try and do?
Scan for the same frequency that we know that we've got an understanding of.
Okay, so do you want to make a roll for that for me?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
What'd you get?
I got 0.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to let's have a look. What have you got there? Okay. Okay, so Kalish.
Yep.
Can you do me a favour? Can you make a give me? I want you to basically make an essentially. So
Sorry,
you make an
insight and
make insight and security.
Is that to figure out why she hasn't got a disruptor in her hand already?
just a one success.
Okay, that's fine. That's good enough. Okay. So you have an idea, and you suspect that if you were to get engineering to wreck a shield with the same harmonic frequency that they've used for the main shield, might be able to bring this person into a clearer view, or maybe bring them fully out of whatever state they're in, because you see slightly odd harmonic that you're detecting. But that would have to be done from engineering to get them.
So I would
shield around the bridge, maybe.
I would do what isn't normally mentioned too much. Is I would relay that to engineering without. Well, I wouldn't verbally do it, so I'd send them.
Yeah, that's cool.
Send them the equivalent of an email asking as much.
Okay, so Yara, in engineering, like, had this intruder alert go off. Then you get this message from Kalish asking you to erect a harmonic field around the bridge. So do you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm assuming a harmonic field to the same parameters.
Correct. So this is going to be a difficult 0 for you because this is easily done because the Starfleet ships have the ability to erect localized force. You just need
Right.
anything you like, really. Go because it's a difficulty 0. You're going to get a focus because you've got EPS system. Just go ahead and roll.
There we go.
Perfect. Oh, there is a complication.
Oh, we've
there,
got a
but
complication.
That's okay. That's okay.
Complication is we disabled the Klingons' email system.
Actually, that's good. Right. So what happens is on the bridge. So right, you go ahead and flick this. You go ahead and enter the command bridge. Kalish, your security scanner shows you this force field has been erected.
Yep.
As that happens, the figure on the bridge becomes clear, and as those of you on the bridge watch this figure kind of appears out of the field, and you see that he's actually a human uniform, and all of you on the bridge suddenly are shocked to realise that this is actually a Starfleet security officer. So, do any of you remember Carl?
Sorry, Steve. Do you remember who?
Carl Elias is his name.
Oh, Elias.
Carl Elias. Any of you, that name ring a bell with any of you?
Name
Was
doesn't.
he was he the chap? We went to a space station and there was a murder,
Yeah,
and there was a Starfleet officer that had contacted the person that got murdered.
that's
Was
correct. It wasn't. That's not him.
Got him.
Carl Elias is a. Hang on a minute. I've got an image. I think security officer. He's a security crewman, and he was actually the crewman who was the exchange officer with the pool. So when Kalish participated in the officer exchange program, he was the Starfleet officer who transferred to the Mapool, and he was assumed with the Mapool.
Yeah, missing in action.
And he is now standing on your bridge. And at that point, I think we will bring it to a close for tonight.
Ask him if you've seen Kirk.
Well, you can certainly do that next week.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Starship Vigilant. Kaz was played by Mike. David Osterhagen was played by Kevin. Kalish was played by Kerin. Our music is Fanfare for Space by Kevin MacLeod, which is licensed under a Creative Commons license. See you next time.